On the surface, Chainsawman may come as just another action shonen. We got a trio that consists of a reckless and naive MC with a devil inside of his body, a cold best friend with a traumatic background, and loud and energetic girls. We also got the love interest, and finally, we got the ultimate goal of killing the big bad evil. But as we know, it is far different from that. It is a magnificent melody of chaos that is composed with twist and turn, unpredictability, violence, gore, destruction, and death. Nobody is safe in the story, not even the damn devils themselves. Despite all of that, the core of Chainsaw Man is none other than its interpersonal relationship between each character, something much more human and delicate in contrast to its chaotic and rough exterior. Honestly, Chainsaw Man could be about anything you want, but for me, the heart of Chainsaw Man is no doubt intimacy and love. Before we move further, it is in our best interest to understand what is intimacy and love. The word intimacy itself derives from a Latin word intimus, which means innermost, inmost, deepest, or profound. So we can define this beautifully simple thing as a profound sense of closeness in relationship, whether it be mentally, emotionally, or physically. Intimacy itself is characterized by consensual trust, vulnerability, genuinity, and without those aspects, true intimacy cannot exist. As you might already know, intimacy can exist in any sort of relationship, and it is not exclusive to romantic love. What about love then? What is love? What is the libido? Libido, in psychoanalytic term, is an expression we refer to the energy of those drives having to do with everything that can be brought under the heading of love. What we call love is of course generally known as love, namely sexual love with the goal of sexual union. However, we do not separate off from the other things that share the name of love: self-love, parental and infant love, friendship, general love of humanity, and even dedication to concrete objects as well as to abstract ideas. Psychoanalytic investigation has taught us that all of these urges are expressions of the same drive impulses as push the sexes in the direction of sexual union. And though in other circumstances it may be pushed away from sexual goal or state in its achievement, nevertheless, they will always persevere enough of their original essence for their identity to remain recognizable. In a simple manner, it is our energy that makes us want, love, care, or help others. And it is not limited to romantic love, but all sorts of expression of love. Simultaneously, the libido has the ability to charge human to strive and to unite into larger units. For that ability, Dr. Sigmund Freud calls it eros, the god of love from ancient Greek mythology. Thus, intimacy is what loves or libido after. In this video, I would refer to the more general expression of love. For romantic love, on the other hand, will be on another video where I will talk about Reiji arc movie. Chainsaw Man is one of those few stories that are grounded in reality. I know it has devils and shit, but what I mean is the way the characters are written is more often than not reflects actual human nature. Even with all the superpower and the otherworldly ability, they are just as confused, scared, and fragile as we are. Also, their desire for intimacy is what ultimately drives the story. Let's take a look at our boy Denji. Off the jump, we're presented with a kid without a clear identity, an orphan living with a devil while trying to pay the insane amount of debt left by his late father. He literally sold his body part and organs to pay that debt. So he is literally an incomplete existence without a clear direction. Just like a dog that only follows order. A dog that nobody bats an eye if it dies. But even in that dark trench, there's some light for him. His best and only friend, Pochita, which is the Chainsaw Devil, or the Chainsawman. And a dream to live a normal life and to fool around with a girl before he dies. In other words, he is desperate for intimacy. But unfortunately for Denji, he has a pretty limited understanding of what intimacy is. Because for him, intimacy is all about sexual or erotic closeness. I mean, what do you expect from him? He is a homeless boy in his teenage years. So it is no wonder that he has such fixation on sexual intimacy, because that's all that he knows. This served as a context for his drives and action for the majority of part 1. That's why, when presented with an opportunity to attain physical intimacy, he would do batshit crazy things, even if it puts his life and sanity on the line, over and over again. For stuff like grouping breaths from the Bad Devil's arc, some kiss from a lady he just met in the Infinity Devil arc, and especially every one of Makima's command, because Denji have fallen in love with Makima since she saved him, and Makima understands that Denji is desperate for intimacy, so she exploits his desperation against him to get whatever she wants from him. Makima in part 1 was the figure that pulls the strings behind the curtains. Everyone around her is just a pawn in her game, and she committed all kinds of atrocities under the banner of necessary evil for the sake of her goals. Well, according to her, the goal is to use Chainsawman to build a perfect world without death, war, and famine. A perfect world in her image, that is. Yet, at the end, we get to know that her true desire is none of the above. You know what she really wants? Her deepest and real desire is none other than genuine connection. But it is impossible for her, for she is the control devil, a being that sees everyone around her as something less than her, a tool, something that only serves her purpose. Chainsawman, on the other hand, is the embodiment of chaos, the total opposite of control, the hero of hell, the one that could erase concept. Chainsawman is the only being that Makima saw as equal. That's why she is so obsessed with Chainsawman, because she really believes that only Chainsawman can grant her dream in one way or another. Now that she has found Chainsawman, the only thing stopping her is Denji, since Denji had merged with Pochita, so she have to destroy Denji. Makima and Denji is the center for part 1. They represent our desperation for intimacy. Although it is taken to a quite extreme degree, we still can see a part of ourselves that yearns for connection in them. But if we consciously or unconsciously desire intimacy, one might come to ask, why do we seek others? Why do we seek intimacy? Biologically, we as species survive for hundreds of thousands of years through connection. Across human evolution, survival never belongs to the strongest alone. It belongs to those who could form bonds, meaning that the earliest human who formed deep bonds live longer, reproduce more, and most important of all, survive. Humanity was able to survive the world because someone helped them, sheltered them, and stood beside them. Just imagine if our ancestors say, screw everybody, and decide to live alone in the woods. We wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be watching this video, and I wouldn't be making a video essay about a shonen manga. But today, predators and famine have faded. We have managed to tame, to some extent, the hostility and harshness of the nature around us. We technically can live without intimacy and love. Yet it is evident that our desire for those things is still well within us. One might come to ask, why are we so driven for it? And what does this have to say about our mind? In Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis theory, we learn that humans have a tendency to achieve happiness and avoid pain, namely the pleasure principle. And we can argue that the happiest moment in a human unconscious memory is the oral stage. Why the oral stage, you ask? Because it is our first experience of intimacy. As an infant, we were taken care of and loved unconditionally by our mother. Yet, the oral stage is also where we experience our first trauma, the separation from our only source of comfort, which is the breast, that gave us our first trauma. Since then, we spend the rest of our life through repetitive acts, trying to find happiness in order to re-achieve the completeness and to fathom the trauma in the infant stage through libido or eros. However, every intimacy or happiness that come after can never be it. After all, they are just a replica of the intimacy in the oral stage. Denji, for example, exhibits this repetitive behavior. In his wild chase for intimacy, time and time again, he is oblivious, straight up ignore his own safety for the sake of his drive. And then, when he finally fulfills his drive, he realized that there is no lasting satisfaction. This repetitive behavior is what Freud calls drive or trip, and thus why we are so driven for intimacy. For Jacques Lacan, all of our desires are born from the fact that we humans always feel incomplete. We always feel like there's something missing, like a hole that prevents us from contentment and peace. Lacan called this hole the lack or manque. Thus, to fill this lack, we desire all sorts of objects that may complete us, which is our object of desire. Yet, desire itself is elusive. Once we obtain our object of desire, we no longer want it, and our desire moves to another object. This is all because what our desire truly wants is not the object of desire, rather the objet d'ira, or objet for short. Like its name, the object cause of desire, it is what makes us desire all sorts of objects. The objet however, is not a real object. Instead, it is the false promise of self-completion behind object of desire, because the lack itself is nothing but a retroactive illusion made by the objet. The reason why objet is effective in the first place is because our inability to obtain it. For instance, Makima's object of desire is Chainsawman, but as we know, what she unconsciously and truly wanted is an identity, one of which she is loved unconditionally, where she can be on equal footing with others. Genuine intimacy that isn't built on fear or obedience. She wants to be chosen, not obeyed. By now, we can understand the relationship between drive and desire. Drive, fulfilled desire through eros or libido, both in sexual and non-sexual way, while desire is unconscious that what it wants is the objet. Intimacy always carries the risk of pain. For one, in our first encounter with another person, that person is still a stranger to us, a being that is still outside of our understanding. Later on, this stranger may become our friend, family, or lover through identification, a process in which we project our own self-image into the said stranger, so we can be familiar to them. However, beneath our relatable and recognizable, lovable friends, there will always be a part of them so alien, unrelatable, and unlovable. Lacan later on calls the recognizable and lovable side as the little other, and the unrecognizable and unlovable as the absolute other with the capital O. The problem is, we tend to hurt and condemn our friends or lover when they act, think, or speak outside of our image of them. Why? Because the fact that matter is, us human are born with ambivalent nature. Hence why we only love the other insofar as they are relatable, predictable, and similar to us. And when we catch a glimpse of the absolute other that lies behind them, something of which we cannot control, master, or predict, there is a sense of betrayal we feel deep inside, and the tender affection can become hatred in an instant. As Freud says, the fact is, identification is ambivalent from the outset. It can as easily turn into an expression of tenderness as into a wish to remove. No matter how well we may think we know or understand our friend, family, lover, and so on, there will always be a part of them that is so unpredictable, alien, unrelatable, and unlovable to us. Yet, it is who they are in reality. In a simple manner, we only love our friend when he or she is there with us and choose to be with us. But when said friend choose to hang out with other people, we hate them for that, since it betrays our imagination of them. Then we cannot call it real connection, isn't it? Since we've deprived them from their otherness, we strip them from who they are in reality. The connection doesn't exist between two different people. Rather, it is just a relation or infatuation with one's projected self-image. As I mentioned before, desire is elusive by nature, since it is not the object that we want, but the objet. For instance, when the person we love accepts our proposal or confession, we will find ourselves brimming with happiness and excitement, since we obtain our object of desire. But give it like 3 months, then we will see that our lover, husband, or wife, and the person that we fell in love with doesn't have the same charm. Soon we realize that we lost the passion and infatuation that was there. Why is that? It's because we never truly want the person in front of us, isn't it? And who's to blame in all of this tragedy, you ask? It is none other than the unattainable objet. The objet fool us like magic. It takes shape as that alluring property or feature. It makes someone special in your very eyes. Those lips, eyes, breasts, neck, voice, beard, personality, etc. The objet is what transforms dull object into desirable ones. Before you realize it, you have fallen in love with it, as the great kiwic writes. This is what makes love questionable. What do you love in me? What do you seek in me? Why do you love me? Is it to resolve your loneliness? Is it to fix your insecurity? Is it to find answer to your trauma? Or is it because you can't even love yourself? Then it is not true love, isn't it? Because anyone will do. This way of loving is unethical and shallow, since essentially we reduce a person, a subject with its own history and heart, into our object of desire. If so, aren't we quite similar to Makima? As it is shown in chapter 94, Makima only loves the idea of what or who Chainsawman is inside of her head and reject everything that goes the opposite of it, clearly stripping the other of their otherness from qualities that constitute the actual person. It is, however, ironic because she utters her rejection while being oblivious that she is talking to the Chainsawman himself. And as revealed at the end of part 1, what Makima truly wants is neither Chainsawman nor her perfect world. She just wants her objet. But in her chase for it, she has caused a great amount of pain toward everyone around her, especially toward Chainsawman that she cared so much. From our investigation through psychoanalysis, we can see that we are an organism that is desperate for intimacy, yet at the same time, we will unavoidably hurt each other when finally in proximity. With all that being said, we might come to ask, is intimacy worth all the pain and suffering? And how do we achieve genuine intimacy in the first place? To answer those questions, we will be looking at the relationship of 3 people that couldn't hate each other more. and how Denji dealt with Makima in their final confrontation. Aki was a husk of a man with tunnel vision of avenging his family to the gun devil. For that goal, he is willing to sacrifice everything, even his literal lifespan. He used to be a lost soul that forgets what it means to be human, but through his connection with Himeno, Aki managed to regain some part of himself that he lost. And for Himeno, he was able to smile again. When he got introduced for the first time in the story, both Aki and Himeno have become quite softer than before. Although so, there is something that hasn't changed for Aki. He is still cold. His body and mind is still fixated to the same old goal. In their first encounter, Denji was met with nothing but rejection. Because for Aki, Denji isn't serious about being a devil hunter, a job in which he was very serious about. However, Makima ordered them to live together, and at first, their cohabitation was chaotic to say the least. Simply, Denji was everything that Aki wasn't. But in the Infinity Devil arc, Aki sacrificed himself while trying to save Denji, despite his dislike toward him. And this becomes the start for them to begin accepting each other. Later on in chapter 4, we got introduced to Power. She was a lot of things. In Denji's words, she's selfish, narcissistic, a habitual liar, an opportunist, and on top of all that, Power is a fiend that hates humans. Denji found that he couldn't get along with Power at all. She was just too wild even for Denji's standard, and especially after she mocks Denji's loss over Pochita. At first, Power also manipulated Denji for her own benefit. She used her breasts to bait Denji and to use him as sacrifice for her pet. So their relationship is not the smoothest at the beginning. But when Power thought that she has lost Nyanko, her pet, she was finally able to sympathize with Denji's loss. And then Denji realized that she's just like him in that sense. That's when the two of them find a starting ground for their relationship. Later on, Denji, Power, and Aki have to live together. And early on, they create a storm of a household. Especially for Aki, because he's constantly have to put up with the two gremlins. But as time went on, something slowly changed. They managed to tolerate each other. Aki finds a way to make Denji and Power cooperate with him. Power learns to follow orders and live among humans that she detests. And Denji, slowly but surely, accepting the two of them. From there, they continuously built something real, something messy, chaotic, but genuine. And we can see that they have come to love each other as they show care in their own way. Like when Denji helps Aki to mourn Himeno by the only way he knows, torturing someone's balls. And when Aki and Denji help Power to deal with her fear of darkness. When Denji and Power went to go with Aki to visit his family's grave. And this is huge for Denji, because prior to this, he got the chance to go on a vacation with Makima, which the very thing that he has been chasing over for so long. But ultimately, he chose his family instead. As they fight, laugh, share meals throughout the violent and mundane moments, it is quite fascinating to see the trio becomes a genuine family. However, none of those things would happen if they did not show their self as they are. In the Infinity Devil arc, according to Aki, why he saved Denji was because he needs as many devil hunters with enough guts, including Denji, to help him kill the gun devil. However, we know that it was not because his duty or any other reason other than that Aki in his heart is a kind man and he would not stand and let anyone die in front of him. And he would do the same thing with Angel later on. He just couldn't betray his heart, even if it cost his life. Similar case can be said with Power. Only when Power shows her vulnerable side, her authentic side to Denji, that's when they finally able to relate to each other. And in those two instances, Denji would take action to reciprocate. And after someone else has shown their true self, reciprocity is what follows after. Not because for transactional needs, but the libido shows its ability to unite people. So it is no wonder if there's a drive to reciprocate. Only when the love is mutual, the relationship is functional. And that's how you build genuine and lasting relationship. When the other embraces me for who I am, there is no reason that I shouldn't do the same. It is a call from our libido to respond love with love. We can see how power is still as wild as ever. Sometimes she attempts to assassinate Denji in his sleep. Denji is still a headache, still unpredictable as ever, and Aki still with his fixation and obsession. And sometimes they even had fistfight. It is evident that they still retain all of their otherness. But for them, it doesn't matter. What matters instead is that they have accept each other as they are and they love each other as it is. And that's how you achieve genuine intimacy. And that intimacy, that bond, is what allows them and us to see what truly important for them, to recognize what their heart truly desire. Though they may not realize it, their genuine bond shifts their sense of urgency into something more authentic to their hearts. For one, power. Intimacy changed this self-absorbed maniac. First with Nyako, she discovers something that is significant outside of herself. Then, through everything she went with Denji and Aki, she learned empathy and able to love the others. In her first selfless act, she celebrated Denji's birthday, and later on, she even sacrificed herself for Denji. Although she lost her life, she didn't regret it at all. Instead, she was just so happy that Denji is safe. It shows that love and intimacy can grow even from the most chaotic dynamic as long as we are genuine. Even for Aki, who was ice cold, softened through the time he shared with Himeno, Denji, and power. When at the beginning he was locked and fixated toward vengeance, Aki had become more protective, brotherly, and caring through the intimacy he shared with them. In chapter 65, as he watched Denji and Power got absolutely destroyed by the darkness devil, he realized that his desire for vengeance might not be worth it, and hence why he quit, even if it was right in front of him, because he wanted to treasure the little time he had with Denji and Power, his family. He had come to discover what truly matters for him is not vengeance to the gun devil, but a family to welcome him home. For Denji, the boy that had no clear existence now starts to find himself and a place where he belongs, between people that he loved and love him back. He was finally able to feel truly alive. And through them, he gained power to recognize what's right or wrong for him, and to make decisions and to choose for himself. So it works all the pain. This family have proved that there is no need to completely know each other. And love can only be true when we love the person in front of us, not the objet in them. Because for them, there is no specific reason to love each other. The love just come to be. And through that love, while they grapple with pain, death, and the finitude of their being, they have become more authentic to themselves. Perhaps this is what the philosopher Martin Heidegger means by leaping ahead of. In the solicitude as leaps ahead, it is authentic as far as he is recognized as a fellow human being in the world and sustain himself in the manner of existence. The trio never try to change nor control each other. Instead, they just simply love each other as is, embracing the absolute other with all of their flaws and shortcomings, which in turn, it gives them confidence to make their own choice, therefore achieving authenticity. That's what makes their bond so beautiful. It's never perfect, it is messy, but it is undoubtedly real. A contrast to Makima that always leaps in for other people, where in such solicitude, the other becomes one who is dominated and dependent, even if this domination is tacit and remain hidden from him. For everyone she came across, she always tries to control them and bend them to her will. It is undeniable that Makima is evil, but she isn't heartless per se. Throughout part 1, we can see some flashes and glints of genuine emotions. So she isn't necessarily a ruthless machine that has no feelings whatsoever. Like Denji, she too is lonely. Her true dream actually is quite innocent, but like Pochita said, she went about it in the wrong way. What causes her to have the wrong approach is the fact that she never had anyone that was able to reach out to her, and at the same time, she didn't know how to reach out properly. This creates a cynical spiral of loneliness and sorrow. And in this sense, we do not justify anything that Makima had ever done. Rather, we can understand that Makima's whole life is one big tragedy. However, the capability for evil exists in each of our heart. Again, as humans, we are ambivalent by nature. The fact is, we can only appreciate the beauty of love because at the same time, we are capable of evil. There lies a monster inside of us that will do anything to satisfy itself, but we can face it and be responsible for that monster through love. Makima, on the other hand, becomes the monster itself, precisely because of her inability to love herself and the other. Hence why Makima is a monster that knows no love, a reflection of all humanity's monstrous nature. How does one deal with such monster then? It is again with love. After everything that she had done to him, making him kill Aki, murdering Power right in front of him, taking everything in his life from him, Denji still couldn't bring himself to hate her. In fact, his love for Makima still remains, but he understands that she needs to be stopped. Before confronting Makima for the last time, he realized that plain aggression and attack would not work on her. Denji soon realized that the person he loved can only tell people apart by their scent, and Denji had a suspicion that she never looked at him even once, let alone loves him. Then, he used this knowledge to his advantage to plan a surprise attack. Makima could never see this coming because she is so sure that she knows everyone she ever came across inside and out. And to finish Makima once and for all, Denji ate her, which is his way of conveying his love for her. In this sense, Denji has embraced the absolute other within her and even pledged to shoulder her sin together. In the end, the control devil reincarnated into Nayuda and Makima exists no longer. As Nayuda, the control devil was finally able to have an equal relationship and even learn to love, which was the real dream of her. And that's how Denji deals with such monster in such poetic way to ties the story at full circle. Love and closeness don't solve your problem. Our movies, music, and advertisement keep selling the same dream. Find the one, fall madly in love, and everything will fall into place. And all of this leads into us unconsciously act as if an endless infatuation will be the answer to all of our problem. As if our lover, husband, or wife, or even friend will solve our problem. As if intimacy is painless and euphoric, while ignoring what makes intimacy and love works in the first place. And this is exactly why Chainsawman hits so different. Fujimoto brings upon a breath of fresh air for the portrayal of intimacy and love in media. Through Denji, Aki, and Power, we see that intimacy does not magically solve anyone's problem. Their bond does not save them from suffering at all. Finding family, friends, or lovers does not erase trauma or suffering. In fact, it often creates pain, fears, and more things that can be lost. Since loving means opening yourself to hurt and get hurt. Yet, It is precisely through this intimacy that they find the strength to endure the relentless assault of the world. And despite the constant and prevalent sexual and erotic imagery, Chainsawman by no means is a glorification of those things. Instead, it exposes how dangerous it is to reduce intimacy to sexual or erotic passion alone. At the same time, shedding lights on how destructive it is to fall prey to our desire, drive, and careless love. Denji's early view of intimacy is narrow and compulsive, driven by immediate gratification rather than real love. Through him, the story warns us to not follow the same path as him. It is no wonder that the pleasure Denji experienced when repetitively chasing and achieving his desire is hollow and fleeting, while it is the quiet and mundane time he shares with Power and Aki when he truly feels alive. Makima thus represent the extreme consequences of unchecked desire and love. Through her, we learn to be responsible for our desire, for what we want and what we love, or it will consume both oneself and the others. Intentional or not, the message is clear. Relationship will always be complicated. Disappointment, uneasiness, and pain are unavoidable in any relationship with the others. But intimacy does not mean avoiding these things. To embrace the absolute other with all of their flaws, failures, ugliness, and wilderness does not mean we should befriend everyone and be vulnerable, but to walk carefully among others by setting reasonable standards and boundaries. And finally, accepting imperfection instead of running away or ignoring it. Only then, intimacy can be real. Intimacy, thus, is a shelter we give to each other from the indifferent and cold world, and it is what keeps us afloat in the harsh current of the vast world, while we give ourselves to embrace pain and bitterness in the name of love. Because at the end of the day, shared pain is divided in half, and happiness shared is doubled, and hence why I love Chainsawman. Okay, for everyone that have made it up until this point, I want to say thank you for watching, of course. But more to that is that I want to express my gratitude for my friends and everyone that have been supporting me, and especially Kiwic, okay, because he is actually the one that inspires me to make this type of video, and I believe he is the best there is when it's come to media literacy and video essay. I believe he have made some wonderful works, and y'all should check him out. I believe everyone should watch his video at least once in their life, because it is life-changing. It is evident by myself. And from him, I got to learn psychoanalysis and get to fall in love with it. And from there, I want to use psychoanalysis, again because I love it, to look upon Chainsawman. And hence why the video. Alright. And also, I never claimed to be an expert of psychoanalysis, nor media literacy. I mean, hey, this is my first video essays, right? So if you have anything that you want to say, you have different opinions, different arguments, or you see different things from both psychoanalysis or Chainsawman, or you see something wrong with my arguments, feel free to comment below. Please, I'm begging you to comment below, because I want to learn, actually, and I also love to discuss ideas with people. Okay, and I believe it is going to be really fun and interesting if we can have discussions below. And yeah, I guess that's all from me. Thank you for watching.